So Michelle Keane was in court today, and she came from Limerick prison, where she was obviously released for the court. And she was asked to sign an undertaking to abide by a court order, right? And she agreed to do so, citing the fact that her hands were tied, as in she would be sent back to jail if she failed to sign this undertaking, stating that she wouldn't name or speak about the sergeant in question, directly or indirectly, right? And the language is problematic, right? Because what does indirectly mean, right? And I feel like Michelle Keane might have handicapped herself here a bit by, again, hands are tied. She wants to be home with her kids for Christmas, right? I understand that. But the language is not clear. Indirectly could mean anything. So if she's speaking about guards in the future, that could be construed as speaking indirectly about this guard again, right? So, which would mean she would be breaching the court order again, and she would probably go back to jail. So I think she's probably after snookering herself in signing something with the wording as ambiguous as that is, as ill-defined as that is. So I would say that Michelle Keane would probably need to be very, very careful in how she speaks about certain things in the future, right? Because she is wide open at the moment for future court cases or future charges, right? But aside from that, that's like a personal story involving this lady and the courts. But aside from that, we have, I suppose, as always, right, the question of judges, right, and the court system and the law, the legal system in Ireland, right, and what is the law, what is legal, is there a difference, why are there two different words, right? So do they mean different things, right? And I suppose the question arises naturally out of that then of the power that judges have, right? So a judge can demand, or I suppose voice a court order to someone, right? And have someone abide by that under the threat of jail time, right? So what are the limits on that? And I would love to hear the input of solicitors and barristers, right? And people that are just knowledgeable about the law, right? So what are the limits on that? Can a judge put in a court order strictly based on him being the judge in the court, and therefore the court order is valid? Like, are there ways of challenging that? And even if there are, like, are you happy living in a system like that, where someone has nearly seeming indiscriminate powers on what they can do to you and what they can have you accept or not accept in terms of the things that you can do or not do, right? And it seems that through these sorts of court orders and things, there's a bit of wiggle room in terms of silencing certain types of speech, silencing or shielding, even defending certain segments of the population or just individuals in the population, right? So, hang on now, I'll just have a little read. So she was ordered to remove all online posts made against the Listowel-based sergeant. Yeah, so here, the injunction also ordered Michelle Keane and any other party acting in concert with her from making future statements about Sergeant Walshall 9. Right, so again, very slippery language. Like, so how do you define somebody who is deemed another party that's acting in concert with you? Could they be deemed to be acting in concert with you based on them maybe sharing a perspective with you, even though you're probably not affiliated with them beyond that, right? So it's slippery ground. And I suppose what you're seeing is the use of technicalities to potentially, I don't know if this is the case, but there's an argument to be made from it, that courts and judges can use technicalities to silence people or to lock people up based on their own political positions, maybe, or their own flouting of the state, right? So people that are deemed by the courts or by judges or by guards even to be antagonistic to the power that they believe themselves executors of, right? And I believe that, look, these are questions that people need to ask for themselves, because we kind of are heading in that position, if we're not there already, right? Where courts could be weaponized against people. Things like court orders where they're essentially ordering people not to talk about certain things, certain people, maybe certain institutions, right? And also people that might be affiliated with someone are not allowed to do it either. So if I'm given a court order not to talk about X, and then somebody who follows me on something speaks about X, am I then liable for that? Do I go to court for that? So there's a lot of this kind of third party involvement with consequences to individuals' actions and speech, right? And that's essentially that's the essence of, and it's even the legal framework in which the hate speech laws will be operating if they're brought in, is that it's not down to the intention of the person who's speaking words, it's down to the reaction of a secondary person based on those words, right? So you can go to jail based on how someone feels. And that's just one way of silencing people. Another way is court orders. So because of the judge's position of steering the ship, right, of being head of the court on that any given day, right, he could give a court order for you to not do X. And is that lawful or not? Does it become lawful, or does it carry the weight of law or legality or whatever, just based on the fact that it's a judge that gives that order? Because that's questionable. Even if all barristers came to me and said, absolutely, that fits in with the legal framework we have in this country, it's perfectly correct and legitimate, I would still question that. Do we want to be living in a society where people are given such seemingly arbitrary power over other people's lives and freedom and over their families' lives, that they can just give a court order? Because otherwise you're breaking the law, aren't you? And would you not just say, instead of giving someone a court order, you would be breaking the law if you do X, therefore I would be strongly encouraging you not to do X. But instead it's like, no, you'd be in contempt of court. Well, what is that? What is that? Are you not allowed to have contempt for the court system? Is that not like a cultic response to people who think differently? That like courts are gods and that is the room of the pantheon that you enter, right? And you dare not have contempt. You must follow and obey. Is that what it is like? Do you know what I mean? So like, people can chew that over all they want, but look, the woman is out, and I think you're just going to see more and more of this sort of stuff, like, you know, and look, obviously each case has its own nuance and technical aspects to it, similar to the Enoch Burke one, and people will give the natural reaction of, should just go in there and purge the contempt, and then you won't have to go back to jail. But where does a person's beliefs and values come into it? Right? Where does that come into it? You're not allowed that anymore. Is that not legitimate enough? That I just don't believe in what you're saying to me. So where do you get the authority to tell me that your views outweigh my views? Right? Outside of you telling me that I'm breaking the law and showing how I'm breaking the law. Because other than that, it's just an owl fella or an owl one or a judge, whatever, just telling you, I don't want you to do this, therefore don't do it or I'll put you in jail. Is that where we at? And is that what we as Irish people who are steeped in justice, steeped in law, is that the state of the legal system that we want to operate in, right?